While Russia remains a significant spacefaring nation with a substantial portfolio of satellites and with its own global navigation system, it's now regarded as falling behind the new leading powers, the United States and China. Its satellite fleet, while robust in certain areas like military reconnaissance and secure communications, has struggled with modernization. It has a respectable amount of aging TV broadcast satellites, but it's very behind when it comes to broadband satellites. To address this satellite deficiency, Russia launched the Sphere Constellation in 2018. Russia's Sphere Satellite Constellation is a state-backed initiative designed to comprehensively modernize the nation's space-based infrastructure and reverse its declining competitiveness in the face of systems like Starlink and OneWeb. Initially proposed as a constellation of 640 satellites by 2030, the project will later be scaled back to 162 satellites with a budget of approximately $2.5 billion. Its core purpose was to provide Russia with sovereign, all-encompassing space services from broadband and television broadcasting to Earth imaging and Internet of Things connectivity, while also supporting government services and Arctic communications. The constellation was structured into distinct satellite groups for telecommunications and Earth observation, each with a specialized function. The SCIF group of 12 satellites at about 8,070 kilometers in medium Earth orbit was to serve broadband internet access. The Marathon group of 271 satellites at about 750 kilometers in low Earth orbit was to serve Internet of Things. The Express RV group of 4 satellites in high elliptical orbit was for broadband internet coverage of the Arctic region and Northern Sea routes. The Yamal and Express groups were 8 large geostationary orbit satellites for communications and TV broadcasting. And lastly, the Beckut, 5 groups of 68 satellites for Earth observation in various spectrums, including satellites for high detail imaging and radar scanning. A SCIF prototype satellite was launched in late 2022 to test Ka-band communications and secure orbital frequency rights. 5 Marathon IoT prototype satellites were planned for 2023, with 44 production satellites slated for 2026. Roscosmos planned to start serial production of Marathon and Beckut satellites by 2027 as part of the federal project. State-owned satellite manufacturer Reshetnev was the lead developer for most of the satellites. This included the SCIF broadband satellites, the Marathon IoT constellation, and the Yamal and Express series for broadcasting. The other manufacturer was NPO Lovachkin, renowned for its expertise in interplanetary probes and complex scientific exploratory vehicles. They are responsible for the sophisticated Earth observation satellites of the Beckut series, which require advanced optical and radar imaging technology. But despite political backing from the Kremlin, the program has encountered substantial technical delays, budget cuts, and a struggle to commercialize its services. In 2022, Roscosmos and a new head, Dmitry Bakhanov, abandoned the Marathon IoT satellite constellation and the SCIF broadband group, stating there wasn't a good enough business case for those services. The reported termination of the Marathon IoT constellation sparked debate among space experts in the country, highlighting a fundamental strategic divergence in the nation's approach to satellite communications. Proponents of the system defend it as a crucial sovereign asset. They argued that Marathon IoT was uniquely positioned to fulfill the military task of controlling unmanned systems like drones, citing its solved supply chain for both space and ground components and ready production capacity for user devices. They emphasized its export potential and warned that its cancellation will strike a blow to Russia's technological sovereignty and cooperation with allied nations. Technically, Marathon IoT was designed around the LoRaWAN protocol. It planned 2 payloads, one for standard IoT sensor data, with delays over 2 seconds, speeds of about 6 kilobits per second at 863 to 928 MHz for compatibility with terrestrial networks, and the modified version for unmanned aerial vehicles command and control. This second payload aimed for 250 milliseconds latency and speeds of up to 31 kilobits per second. Its developers claimed they were sufficient for transmitting imagery and meeting typical UAV control requirements. However, critics contend the project's closure was both expected and justified. They viewed Marathon as a technological dead end, describing it as an underdeveloped LoRaWAN in space that locked Russia into a protocol with inherent bandwidth and latency limitations. This, they argue, created a strategic impasse, especially for future military applications requiring high data rate links, and risk embedding outdated technology into critical drones and defense infrastructure. This criticism is bolstered by a visible shift in focus from state agencies like Roscosmos and FPI towards next-generation 5G-based direct-to-device D2D systems. A new competitive ecosystem of private companies is now advancing this vision. Private companies, Geoscan together with GoNet, are developing two satellite constellations, a low Earth orbit constellation for telecoms communication, data transmission, and IoT, as well as a communications constellation to compete directly with the Iridium system. Another private company, the Sputnik's company, a sister organization to the MTS mobile operator, plans to launch two 5G direct-to-device cellular communication satellites into orbit in the summer of 2026 for testing. A startup named the Telecom Project 5 on May 2025 tested its 5G direct-to-device satellite prototype by simultaneously controlling 5 drones from a TVS-2MS aircraft that carried their prototype satellite to atmospheric heights. Another startup, the Technovation concern, is developing a 192 satellite low Earth orbit constellation based on twin 6U CubeSats units for broadband, conducting research in agriculture and analyzing traffic. The pivot to 5G direct-to-device standards promises far greater data speed, lower latency, and seamless terrestrial network integration, which are deemed essential for future civilian and military needs. Consequently, with multiple entities pursuing more capable alternatives, the continued investment in the limited Marathon IoT system became difficult to justify from a long-term strategic perspective. Russia also didn't and couldn't realistically sustain multiple competing satellite broadband constellations, so the state-developed Skiff constellation was abandoned in favor of private constellations like the ones from Bureau 1440 and the Sputnik concern. But the High Elliptical Orbit Express RV constellation for broadband in the Arctic regions of Russia was funded because private companies were not interested in launching satellites into latitudes with very sparsely populated areas like the Arctic. The Roscosmos subsidiary Reshetnev plans to launch all 4 of them to orbit in 2026. The system is designed to provide broadband internet to the entire territory of Russia, including hard-to-reach regions and waters of the Arctic Ocean. It is planned to achieve coverage in high latitude by placing the satellites in 4 planes in a high elliptical orbit. Each of the 4 satellites will be equipped with equipment to operate in 3 frequency bands, including 12 Ku band antennas as well as C and L band antennas as part of the onboard relay complex. The first of them is planned for orbit at the end of 2026. Reshetnev and mobile operator Beeline have agreed on the development of a satellite communications system that will test the integration of the satellite technology with 4G and 5G terrestrial networks to provide 5G NTN mobile coverage in remote regions of the country. Instead of a few robust, well-funded competitors, Russia risked creating multiple partially deployed systems, none of which would achieve global competitiveness or full domestic coverage. Russia's satellite broadband ambitions would have remained fragmented, slow, and perpetually in development, squandering resources and strategic opportunity. With the appointment of the new head of Roscosmos, Dmitry Bakanov, in 2025, the closure of the Skiff and Marathon programs was a step in pruning the ecosystem and leaving the satellite constellation business to private companies. Roscosmos wants to focus on rocket-launched vehicles, whilst most of the satellite making is outsourced to private enterprise. This represents a fundamental cultural change for Russia's historically state-dominated space sector, aiming to inject agility, specialized expertise, and cost efficiency into its beleaguered space sector. The deployment of LEO constellation services in Russia will produce a significant positive economic effect, primarily through the integration of Russia's vast and remote territories into the national digital economy. By providing high-speed, low-latency internet where laying fiber is impractical, it will address the core digital divide and unlock significant socio-economic benefits in the remote corners of the country. Initial integration will focus on logistics and transport sectors, such as providing connectivity for commercial airlines, ships on the Northern Sea route, and trains on the Trans-Siberian route. It will provide connectivity to remote industrial sites in sectors like oil and gas and mining, enabling real-time data transfer, automation, and improved coordination. For public services and e-government, satellite internet will eliminate the need for arduous, expensive travel to administrative centers. Residents will be able to complete all paperwork online, applying for passports, driver's license, permit, or social benefits through the government portal. It will also enable participation in remote court hearings and access to other digital state services, fostering inclusion and streamlining bureaucracy. Residents in Arctic regions face the most urgent need for affordable low-orbit satellite constellations. The deputy governor of the Nenets Autonomous Okrug announced his excitement for the new Bureau 1440 project. He explained that geostationary orbit technologies are expensive and inefficient and are not getting cheaper or any better. He emphasized the status quo where residents pay exorbitant sums of money for speeds as low as 256 kilobits per second is untenable, and announced the regional government plans to launch a pilot in 2026 and become the first region to test the project. In education, connectivity will revolutionize learning. Students in remote schools would be able to participate in live interactive video lessons and access vast digital libraries and online courses, effectively bringing the classroom to the tundra or the taiga. Teachers could engage in continuous professional development through remote training, elevating their overall quality of education. This will directly promote equal opportunity, dramatically narrowing the educational gap between children in major cities and those in settlements in the Arctic like Tiksi or Dixon. The impact on healthcare would be profound, maybe even life-saving. Reliable broadband will enable robust telemedicine, allowing local physicians to conduct video consultations with specialists in regional or national centers. This will facilitate remote diagnostics where X-rays and ultrasound images can be transmitted for immediate second opinions. Crucially, it will enhance emergency coordination, speeding up medical evacuations. On a social and cultural level, affordable high-quality internet will reduce the profound isolation of remote life. Families will maintain close bonds through seamless video calls, while access to streaming news, entertainment, and cultural content will improve the quality of life in remote villages. For indigenous communities, it will offer powerful tools for cultural preservation, such as creating digital archives and facilitating online language courses. Russia's vast and unforgiving geography presents a profound connectivity challenge, with countless remote settlements lying far beyond the reach of terrestrial broadband infrastructure. Towns like Novo-Urengoy in the Yamo-Nenet region and Dudinka in Krasnoyarsk Krai are geographically isolated from fiber optic backbones, forcing them to depend on expensive, slow, and often unreliable satellite links. This isolation is particularly acute for smaller, isolated communities like Udachny, Sunta, and Yuba. For these populations, each under 20,000, the immense cost of laying thousands of kilometers of fiber across permafrost and remote terrain renders the project economically unjustifiable. Satellite broadband will be of great service in these communities. Connectivity is a catalyst for development. This service will empower digital entrepreneurship, allowing local businesses to market and sell their goods like reindeer meat, fish, or handicrafts directly to national and international markets. It will open the door for remote work, creating possibilities for residents to take on IT, consultancy, and other knowledge economy jobs without leaving their communities. The tourism sector could flourish through better online promotion by offering reliable internet to visitors exploring the Arctic. The enhanced connectivity will significantly boost security and emergency responses. It will enable reliable early warning systems for natural disasters like floods and improve coordination between rescue services during accidents. It will also support the monitoring of Russia's vast borders and critical infrastructure through connected sensor networks. For a big nation, it's a foundational project of technological sovereignty. The conflict in Ukraine has starkly demonstrated the strategic necessity of a sovereign, secure, and resilient satellite communication system. The Russian military is a foundational customer, requiring unblockable command links, intelligent dissemination, and connectivity for deployed units, especially in remote regions like the Arctic, where Russia has significant strategic interests. However, these benefits come with substantial economic costs. The financial outlay for building, launching and maintaining a mega constellation is enormous, with estimates for Russia's project reaching nearly 5 billion. But with the coming of AI, providing internet to every remote village should be worth the cost. Having your own satellite constellation saves the country from funding other nations' space companies and rather helping develop your own local space industry. From a strategic perspective, a sovereign LEO constellation is a top priority for the Russian state. It will provide a military, government and security service with secure, independent and highly resilient communication channels that is less vulnerable to interception, blocking or foreign influence. This reduces critical dependence on foreign technology and infrastructure, ensuring the state remains connected during geopolitical crises or conflicts.